The garden of Evergreena wasn't like other gardens. Oh, it was beautiful, breathtakingly so, with flowers that shimmered with every color imaginable and trees that bore fruit all year round. But Evergreena danced to a different rhythm, a whimsical waltz where time itself seemed to take a playful detour. One moment, cherry blossoms would flutter in the breeze, and the next, plump pumpkins would ripen on the vine. It wasn't chaos, not exactly. It was a shifting of seasons, a beautiful, unpredictable blend managed by the grand sunflower clock. The sunflower clock wasn't made of metal and gears, not entirely. It was a giant sunflower, taller than any tree, its face a swirling mosaic of petals, each one a tiny, ticking hand. Old Man Tiber, the oldest tortoise in Evergreena, had built it centuries ago, weaving magic and mechanics into its very stem. As long as the clock turned, Evergreena thrived. Remy, a young rabbit with fur the color of warm sand, was known throughout the garden for his speed. He could streak past a blooming rose before it even finished unfurling, a blur of energy and enthusiasm. Today, he was enjoying a particularly delightful race with the wind, weaving between the lavender bushes, when he noticed something was off. The air felt still, too still. The usual gentle hum of the garden, the buzz of bees, the rustle of leaves, was muted. "That's funny," he muttered, skidding to a halt near the sunflower clock. The giant flower stood motionless. Its petal hands were frozen, pointing to a jumbled mess of times. A little bit of spring, a touch of autumn, a dash of winter, all crammed together. Nearby, huddled behind a cluster of bluebells, was Penny, a small porcupine. She was a creature of quiet observation, her nose twitching as she took in every minute detail. Penny wasn't much for talking, preferring the company of the flowers and the gentle whisper of the wind. But she had a gift for noticing things others missed. And she'd noticed the clock stopping. She'd seen the petals slow, then falter, then stillness. A shiver ran down her spiny back. It felt wrong, terribly wrong. But the thought of speaking up, of drawing attention to herself, filled her with dread. "Everything all right, Penny?" Remy called out, bounding over. Penny jumped, nearly rolling into a patch of daisies. "Oh, hello Remy," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. She pointed a trembling paw towards the clock. Before she could say anything, a cheerful buzz filled the air. "Good morning, everyone. Lovely day for pollinating, isn't it?" Buzz, a plump bumblebee with a perpetually optimistic outlook, zipped between the blossoms, diligently collecting pollen. He was the garden's chief pollinator, ensuring every flower had a chance to bloom. "Buzz, do you feel that?" Remy asked, frowning at the clock. "Something's not right." Buzz paused mid-flight, hovering in front of a vibrant tulip. He tilted his head, his antennae twitching. You're right. The blooms are confused. I just pollinated a winter rose and a summer sunflower, right next to each other. That's never happened before." He buzzed around the clock, examining it with growing concern. "Oh dear. The sunflower clock has stopped." The moment the sunflower clock stilled, Evergreena began to unravel. It wasn't a dramatic tear, but a slow, unsettling distortion. A flurry of snowflakes began to drift down, landing on the bright red petals of summer poppies. A nearby oak tree, normally ablaze with autumn gold, sprouted a fresh crop of spring leaves, vibrant green against the fading hues. Even the air felt wrong, thick with a disorienting mix of scents, pine needles and honeysuckle, pumpkin spice and lilac. Buzz, usually a whirlwind of cheerful energy, found himself battling a chaotic wind that seemed to blow in all directions at once. He struggled to maintain a straight flight path, bumping into petals and nearly getting swept away by a rogue gust of icy air. "Goodness gracious," he buzzed, his voice strained. "Pollinating is impossible. I just tried to land on a daffodil and ended up flying backwards." He zipped past Remy and Penny, looking increasingly flustered. "The flowers are getting terribly confused. They don't know when to bloom, when to rest. It's utter pandemonium." Remy, his usually boundless energy replaced with a grim determination, watched a patch of bluebells suddenly turn a sickly shade of orange. "This is worse than I thought," he muttered, his nose twitching nervously. He began to race through the garden, trying to make sense of the chaos. He noticed a robin attempting to build a nest with both pine branches and sunflower stalks, utterly bewildered. A family of ladybugs were shivering despite the warm sunshine, as if caught in an unexpected frost. "Remy, look," Penny called out, her voice a little stronger now, emboldened by the urgency of the situation. She pointed with a trembling paw towards a row of rose bushes. "The roses. They're blooming inside out. The petals are curling inwards instead of outwards." Remy examined the roses closely. Penny was right. It was a subtle detail, easily missed, but undeniably strange. "You have a remarkable eye for detail, Penny," he said, genuinely impressed. "I wouldn't have noticed that." He continued his investigation, hopping towards a group of elder garden creatures. Old Man Tiber the tortoise, Celeste the graceful swan, and Barnaby the badger huddled together near the ancient willow tree. Their voices were hushed, their expressions grave. "I haven't seen anything like it in centuries," Old Man Tiber was saying, his voice raspy with age. "The seasons are colliding, twisting. It's as if the very heart of Evergreena is faltering." "The clockwork core," Celeste murmured, her voice laced with worry. "Something must be wrong with the clockwork core." "Clockwork core?" Remy asked, cautiously approaching the group. They all turned to look at him, their eyes filled with a mixture of concern and resignation. Barnaby, the badger, sighed heavily. "It's the heart of the sunflower clock, lad. A hidden mechanism deep beneath the garden, powered by... well, that's a story for another time. But if it's failing, Evergreena is in grave danger." Old Man Tiber nodded slowly. "The core regulates the flow of time within the garden. If it's disrupted, everything falls into disarray. We must find out what's happened, and quickly, before Evergreena is lost to the chaos." The air grew thick and cool as Remy, Penny, and Buzz approached the base of the oldest rose bush. Its thorns, usually a gentle green, seemed to bristle with a strange energy. A dark opening, previously hidden by trailing vines, yawned beneath the sprawling branches, the entrance to the clockwork core. "Are you sure about this?" Penny squeaked, her quills twitching nervously. "It looks dark." Remy, despite a flicker of his own apprehension, puffed out his chest. "We have to be, Penny. The sunflower clock isn't going to fix itself." Old Man Tiber said the answer lies within the core. He glanced at Buzz, who was already hovering near the entrance, testing the air currents. "It smells like gears and dust bunnies?" Buzz chirped, tilting his head. "And a faint whiff of cinnamon, oddly enough. But don't worry. I'll scout ahead." Before Remy could protest, Buzz zipped inside, disappearing into the darkness. A moment later, his voice echoed back, albeit muffled. "It's a network of tunnels. And mechanical routes. It's amazing." Remy exchanged a worried glance with Penny. "Amazing isn't always good," she murmured, clutching her paws. "We'll go slow," Remy reassured her. "And we'll stick together. Remember what Old Man Tiber said, teamwork is the key." He nudged Penny gently. "Your quills might come in handy, you know. If the tunnels are tight, you can use them to feel your way." Penny's eyes widened. "Really? I could?" "Absolutely. You're the best at noticing small details, Penny. That's a superpower in a place like this." Remy offered a reassuring smile. Taking a deep breath, Penny cautiously lowered herself into the opening. Remy followed close behind. The tunnel was narrow, and the air smelled of metal and damp earth. Mechanical roots, thick as tree trunks, crisscrossed the ceiling and walls, pulsing with a faint, rhythmic hum. "Buzz? Are you still there?" Remy called out. "Just ahead," came the reply. "Follow the glowing moss. It seems to mark the path." As they ventured deeper, the tunnels grew increasingly complex. They twisted and turned, branching off into smaller passages. Remy's speed was helpful for quickly checking dead ends, but it was Penny who truly shone. Her sensitive quills brushed against the walls, detecting subtle changes in the tunnel's width and identifying hidden obstacles. "Wait!" she called out suddenly. "There's a section ahead that's narrowing. Very narrow. Can your quills get us through?" Remy asked, hopeful. Penny closed her eyes, concentrating. I think so. If I angle them just right, we can squeeze through. She carefully maneuvered her body, using her quills to gently guide them through the tight space. Buzz, meanwhile, was proving surprisingly adept at navigating the complex network. I've been pollinating flowers in this garden for years, he buzzed, flitting from root to root. I know this place like the back of my wing. He pointed toward a branching tunnel. This way. I think it leads closer to the core. As they continued their descent, Remy couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The rhythmic hum of the mechanical roots seemed to grow louder, and shadows danced in the periphery of his vision. They were entering the heart of the garden, and something told him they weren't alone. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, the air thick with the smell of oil and decay. Before them lay a sight that made Remy's fur stand on end. Scattered across the chamber floor were piles of corroded metal, remnants of what were once intricate clockwork mechanisms. And moving amongst the wreckage were the rust monsters, strange, crab-like creatures with bodies formed from flaking rust and glowing orange eyes. They were gnawing on a massive support beam, sending showers of orange dust into the air. Wat aretose things? Penny whispered, her voice trembling. She instinctively huddled closer to Remy. Rust monsters, Buzz buzzed, his cheerful tone noticeably subdued. They eat metal. And they're not very friendly. He hovered higher, trying to get a better look. They're heading straight for the core's main supports. Remy's eyes followed the monster's path. They were indeed making a beeline for the largest gears, the very foundations of the clockwork core. We have to stop them, he declared, already thinking of a plan. Buzz, can you distract them? Maybe lead them away from the supports? Buzz hesitated. I could try, but they're surprisingly fast for their size. And they don't seem to like buzzing. I have an idea, Penny interjected, surprising both Remy and Buzz. My quills. They're quite distracting. If I can launch a few in their direction, it might give you both a chance to slip past. Remy looked at Penny, impressed by her sudden bravery. That's a great idea, Penny. But be careful. I will, she said, her voice gaining confidence. She quickly loosened several quills, sending them spinning towards the nearest rust monster. The creature paused, momentarily startled by the prickly projectiles. It swatted at the quills with a claw, then turned its attention towards Penny, clicking its mandibles menacingly. Now! Remy shouted. He darted forward, using his speed to weave between the monsters, heading towards the support beam. Buzz followed close behind, zipping and dodging with incredible agility. The rust monsters, momentarily distracted by Penny and Remy's movements, turned their attention towards the two figures. However, Buzz wasn't just dodging, he was collecting something. He flew over a patch of luminescent purple flowers, gathering a generous amount of pollen on his legs. What are you doing, Buzz? Remy called out, narrowly avoiding a snapping claw. I noticed these flowers earlier, Buzz replied. They have a really potent scent. And I think it repels the monsters. He began to shake off the pollen, creating a shimmering cloud around them. The effect was immediate. The rust monsters recoiled, hissing and sputtering as the pollen came into contact with their rusty bodies. They flailed their claws, attempting to brush off the irritating dust, momentarily forgetting their mission to dismantle the core. It's working! Remy exclaimed, taking the opportunity to examine the damaged support beam. But it won't last long. We need to find a way to reinforce it. Penny, still bravely distracting the monsters with her quills, yelled, I see a pile of spare gears over there. Maybe we can use them to patch up the beam? Good idea, Penny. Remy called back. Buzz, can you guide me to them? With Buzz leading the way, Remy quickly gathered several gears, carefully fitting them into the damaged section of the support beam. It wasn't a perfect repair, but it would buy them some time. The pollen's effect was wearing off, and the rust monsters were starting to regain their focus. They were closing in again, their glowing eyes fixed on the trio. We need to go. Remy urged, we've done what we can for now. Let's get to the core. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern, the air thick with the smell of oil and decay. Before them lay a sight that made Remy's fur stand on end. Scattered across the chamber floor were piles of corroded metal, remnants of what were once intricate clockwork mechanisms. And moving amongst the wreckage were the rust monsters, strange, crab-like creatures formed of flaking rust and glowing orange eyes. They were gnawing on a massive support beam, sending showers of orange dust into the air. "What are those things?" Penny whispered, her voice trembling. She instinctively huddled closer to Remy. "Rust monsters," Buzz buzzed, his cheerful nature subdued. "They eat metal and aren't very friendly." He hovered higher, trying to get a better look. "They're heading straight for the core's supports." Remy's eyes followed their path. They were making a beeline for the largest gears, the foundations of the clockwork core. "We have to stop them," Remy declared, already thinking of a plan. "Buzz, can you distract them? Lead them away from the supports?" Buzz hesitated. "I can try, but they're surprisingly fast for their size, and I don't think they like buzzing." "I have an idea," Penny interjected, surprising both Remy and Buzz. "If I launch some of my quills, it might distract them long enough for you to slip past." Remy's eyes widened. "Penny, that's brilliant." He hadn't expected such a bold idea from the shy porcupine. "Are you sure?" Buzz asked, concern lacing his voice. "Those creatures look prickly." Penny took a deep breath, her quills slightly bristling. "I've been practicing, and it's better than letting them destroy the core." "All right, let's do it," Remy said, admiration for Penny growing. "Buzz, be ready to follow my lead once Penny creates a diversion. And Penny, be careful." Penny nodded, focusing her energy. With a flick of her body, she launched a volley of quills towards the nearest rust monster. The quills weren't meant to harm, but to annoy, to distract. The effect was immediate. The rust monster, startled by the prickly projectiles, skittered sideways, its orange eyes fixated on the quills embedded in the metal around it. Others turned, momentarily forgetting their task of gnawing on the support beam. "Now!" Remy shouted. With a burst of speed, he darted between the confused monsters, heading towards the main supports. Buzz followed close behind, weaving through the chaos. The rust monsters, regaining their focus, turned towards the new intruders. One lunged for Remy, snapping its metallic claws. He dodged with ease, his agility honed by years of racing through the garden. "Keep moving," Remy called to Buzz, who was struggling to navigate the tight spaces between the monsters. "They're slower than they look, but they're relentless." As they reached the supports, Remy noticed something. The rust monsters seemed agitated by the scent of a specific type of pollen. Buzz, ever observant, was already investigating. "This is interesting," Buzz exclaimed. "The moon petal pollen. It doesn't harm them, but it makes them incredibly itchy. It disrupts their metallic harmony. Can you spread it around?" Remy asked, his mind racing. "I can try," Buzz replied, buzzing excitedly. He began to collect moon petal pollen from nearby flowers, carefully carrying it in his pollen sacs. Then, he flew in wide circles, releasing a cloud of the shimmering dust around the rust monsters. The effect was remarkable. The creatures began to writhe and scratch, their movements becoming clumsy and erratic. They bumped into each other, losing all coordination. "It's working," Remy cheered. "Keep it up, Buzz." With the rust monsters temporarily repelled, Remy and Buzz worked quickly, reinforcing the weakened supports with spare gears and metal plates they found scattered around the cavern. Penny, despite her initial fear, helped by using her quills to wedge the plates into place, ensuring a secure fit. Finally, with the support stabilized, they took a moment to catch their breath, watching as the itchy rust monsters stumbled around, thoroughly confused and miserable. "We did it," Penny breathed, a small smile gracing her lips. "We actually did it." "Teamwork," Remy said, nudging Penny playfully. "That's what saved us." He looked at Buzz, who was still buzzing with energy. "And a little bit of itchy pollen." The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, smelling of oil and decay. Scattered across the floor were remnants of broken mechanisms. Before them, a sight that made Penny's quills bristle. They were rust monsters, creatures of corrosion, gnawing on anything metallic. "What are those?" Penny whispered, instinctively clinging closer to Remy. "Rust monsters," Remy said, his voice steady despite the unsettling scene. "We need to be careful. They're attracted to anything metal."
Butz hovered, observing the monsters.
They seemed to move in patterns, almost like a dance. The chamber was filled with ticking and whirling sounds. As they ventured deeper, they realized the chamber wasn't just filled with debris, it was a massive clockwork puzzle. Gears of varying sizes spun and locked, platforms rose and fell, and beams shot out at unpredictable intervals. "This is one of the tick-tock traps," Remy announced, his eyes darting around, calculating the movements of the machinery. "The path to the clockwork core is guarded by these challenges. They test timing, cooperation, and, well, a little bit of luck."
Penny's quills trembled. "I don't like this. Tiere so fast, so unpredictable."
"We'll get through it together," Remy reassured her. "I'll use my speed to scout ahead, you use your keen eyes to spot the patterns, and Buzz, your aerial view will be invaluable." The first trap was a rapidly rotating gear puzzle. A series of gears, each with missing teeth, spun at increasing speeds. To proceed, they needed to jump from gear to gear, filling the gaps with loose metal plates scattered around the chamber. Remy, a blur of fur, zipped between the gears, quickly assessing the optimal route. "Penny, to your left. There's a plate that fits perfectly. Buzz, can you guide me to the next one?" Buzz, expertly navigating the air currents, pointed with a leg. 3 gears ahead, Remy, slightly to the right. "Watch out for the beam." Remy leaped, narrowly avoiding a sweeping beam of energy, and landed on the next gear, securing the plate just in time. Next, they encountered a rhythmic trap. The floor was a grid of pressure plates that lit up in a complex sequence.
Stepping on the wrong plate triggered a cascade of falling gears.
Penny, despite her initial fear, focused intently on the pattern. "Wait. It's not random. It's a repeating sequence. 1, 3, 5, 2, 4. Then it repeats."
"You've got it, Penny,"
Remy exclaimed.
"Lead the way."
Penny, with surprising confidence, guided them across the grid, her small paws carefully stepping on the correct plates. The rhythmic clicking of the plates filled the chamber, a testament to their coordinated effort. "I never thought I could do that," Penny murmured, a hint of pride in her voice. "You were amazing, Penny," Remy said, bumping her gently with his shoulder. "Your attention to detail saved us." Buzz zoomed around them, buzzing with excitement. "Teamwork makes the dream work. And it's a lot more fun when we all contribute." As they progressed deeper into the chamber, the traps became increasingly complex, demanding perfect timing and seamless cooperation. But with each challenge they overcame, their confidence grew. Remy's speed, Penny's observation skills, and Buzz's aerial perspective proved to be a formidable combination. Finally, they reached the end of the chamber, a doorway leading to a dimly lit passage. They had survived the tick-tock traps. The passage opened into a circular chamber, dominated by the clockwork core, a magnificent structure of spinning gears, glowing crystals, and intricate pathways. But the sight that truly struck them was the broken gear, a gaping hole where a vital piece should have been. An elderly gnome, with a beard that trailed onto the floor, sat beside it, looking utterly dejected. "Welcome, travelers," the gnome said, his voice raspy with age. "I am Old Man Tiber. You have overcome much to reach this place, but I fear your journey may be in vain. The core is broken, and without the right piece, it cannot be mended."
"What kind of piece?"
Remy asked, his voice filled with determination. Tiber sighed. "Not just any piece, young rabbit. It requires something valuable. Something given freely, without expectation of return. Something born of true selflessness." Buzz, hovering near the core, noticed something else. "The light. It's fading. The core is getting dimmer." "Indeed," Tiber confirmed. "The core is powered not just by gears and springs, but by the kindness and care of the garden's inhabitants. The chaos has dampened their spirits, and the core reflects that." Remy, Penny, and Buzz exchanged worried glances. They had faced physical challenges, But this was different. How could they find something valuable enough, something truly selfless? Suddenly, Remy's ears perked up. He remembered the field mouse family, the miller's head seen earlier, huddled and shivering under a wilted sunflower. Their burrow had been flooded during the snow and summer, leaving them homeless. I think I know what we need, Remy said, a newfound resolve in his voice. Penny and Buzz turned to him, confused.
What do you mean, Remy?
Penny asked. My burrow, Remy said, his voice barely a whisper. It's the safest place in the garden. Warm, dry. I could offer it to the millers.
A gasp escaped Penny's lips. Remy, no. Your burrow is your home.
You love that place. Buzz zipped around Remy's head, buzzing anxiously. But where will you live? The weather is still unpredictable. It's too much to sacrifice, Remy. Remy looked at his friends, his expression firm. The millers need a home more than I need a comfortable one. If their happiness can help restore the core, then it's worth it. Penny's quills drooped. But you deserve a home too. We'll figure something out, Remy said, bumping Penny gently with his nose. We'll build a new one together. But right now, the garden needs this more than I do. Buzz, seeing the unwavering determination in Remy's eyes, finally relented.
You're right, Remy.
It's a truly selfless act. Penny, though still hesitant, nodded slowly. If this is what you truly want, Remy, then we support you. With heavy hearts, Remy led his friends to the millers. The tiny family looked up in astonishment as Remy explained his offer. Mrs. Miller burst into tears, and Mr. Miller could only stammer his gratitude. We don't know how to thank you, Remy, Mr. Miller said, his voice choked with emotion.
You're giving us everything.
It's nothing, Remy said, though his heart ached a little. Just take care of it. As the millers scampered into Remy's burrow, a warm golden light began to emanate from the clockwork core. The broken gear started to glow, and a small, shimmering piece materialized, perfectly fitting into the empty space. The core whirred to life, its gears spinning with renewed energy. The light in the chamber intensified, filling the space with a vibrant warmth. Old Man Tiber smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Selflessness. It is the most powerful force in the garden. You have reminded us all of that, young Remy. The restored clockwork core pulsed with a steady, rhythmic beat, its light now a beacon of warmth and order. As the final click of the repaired gear echoed through the chamber, a wave of calm washed over the garden. The swirling snow vanished, replaced by the gentle warmth of summer. The strangely colored leaves returned to their vibrant greens and reds, and the bees resumed their flight patterns, pollinating the blossoms with joyful efficiency. Outside, the garden was transforming. Wilted flowers perked up, their petals unfurling in the sunlight. The ancient trees straightened, their branches reaching towards the sky. It was as if the garden itself was breathing a collective sigh of relief. Remy, Penny, and Buzz emerged from the root tunnels, blinking in the bright light. They were immediately greeted by a chorus of cheers. Flowers waved their petals, butterflies danced in the air, and even the grumpy gnomes offered nods of approval. You did it! Cried a sunflower, its face beaming. You saved the garden. Heroes. True heroes. Buzzed a group of bees, circling around Remy. Penny, overwhelmed by the attention, instinctively curled into a ball. But then, a small voice spoke. It's all right, Penny, said a young bluebell. We're just so happy. You were so brave down there. Penny slowly uncurled, her quills softening. She looked at the bluebell, then at the other creatures, and offered a shy smile. For the first time, she didn't feel the need to hide. She even managed a small wave, which was met with a delighted response. Buzz, meanwhile, was already hard at work. He'd gathered a team of bees and was directing them towards the area where the millers had taken refuge in Remy's old burrow. All right, team. We need to gather the strongest stems, the softest moss, and the most fragrant petals. Buzz instructed. We're going to build the millers a burrow even better than before. A burrow fit for heroes. Or at least, for a very grateful family of mice. Remy watched, a warm feeling spreading through his chest. He'd lost his burrow, but he'd gained something far more valuable: the gratitude of his community and the unwavering friendship of Penny and Buzz. Old Man Tiber approached, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "You see, Remy," he said, "the garden isn't just about gears and clocks. It's about the connections between all living things. It's about kindness, compassion, and the willingness to put others before yourself. And now," Tiber continued with a chuckle, "it's about celebrating. There will be a feast tonight, with nectar and pollen for all. And a special celebration for our brave heroes." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the revitalized garden, Remy, Penny, and Buzz stood together, watching the preparations for the feast. Penny, no longer shy, was chatting animatedly with a group of ladybugs. Buzz was overseeing the construction of the miller's new burrow, ensuring every detail was perfect. And Remy, though missing his old home, felt a sense of peace and contentment he'd never known before. The garden had learned a valuable lesson, and so had they. Kindness wasn't just a nice thing to have, it was the very heart of their world. And as long as they remembered that, the Clockwork Garden would continue to bloom in harmony, season after season.